Not.
Okay, it's okay. You
Okay.
continue.
Yeah. So it comes in different sizes. The sizes varies, but usually it is 10 French bottles. 9 French is also available. So these are the two common indications wherein it is used. The migration is less with this. Otherwise, the straight stent usually migrates. That's a problem with the straight stents. Okay. So this is named after Sohendra. No, Sohendra? Named Sohendra. As last class I have shown the picture. Yeah.
Yes.
Named after him. Okay, so one is the uses already you mentioned, this malignant biliary stricture, then the stone disease. This doesn't have side holes, so the early clogging is not there. So identify these stents.
So because these are straight and internal holes are there sideways all along the stent, these are plastic stent. First one is a straight plastic stent, second one is single pigtail plastic pancreatic stent. Sorry, plastic pancreatic stent.
Yes, both are pancreatic stents. So
Yes.
because of the side holes, and this is a single. What is the use of the single pigtail?
Single pigtail prevents migration, whereas the straight stent we wanted to migrate earlier for post-ERCP pancreatitis prevention we can use. Single pigtail we can use for pancreatic strictures where we don't want the stent to migrate.
The stent to migrate inside.
Inside, yes.
Yeah. So it will definitely migrate outside because the chances of the pigtail is down. So the name of the first stent is called Genan pancreatic stent. Okay, so it has got a contour for MPT. That's why you can see that bent. Okay, and the second one is a Simon pancreatic stent. This has got the external pigtail to prevent inward migration. So it has got that multiple side holes and the ductal flaps. Okay.
Yes.
Good. So the difference between plastic and metal stent. What is the and it's already mentioned here that the metal stents. When will you opt for a metal stent?
So when a patient is inoperable for a malignant condition, or
Yes,
that is for an uncovered metal stent. That is for an uncovered metal stent, I will prefer that. For a covered metal stent, mostly for biliary strictures, that is benign.
Dr. Samir,
Yes, sir.
Between plastic and metal stent, when do you decide?
Sir, one is depending upon the lesion that we are seeing. Metal stent will be preferable for a malignant lesion, which is not operable. So these patients we can give palliative self-expanding uncovered metal stents or a partially covered metal stent if a cystic duct insertion is high above. And for covered metal stents, we can use for benign lesions because recent studies are showing that putting multiple plastic or a covered metal stent are showing equal effect, maybe better benefit with covered metal stents.
Fully covered. Fully covered.
Fully covered metal stents. And fully covered metal stent we can also use if there is a perforation, bleeding, uncontrolled bleeding.
Yeah. Okay. So if the life expectancy is more than 6 months, we can go for a metal stent in malignancy. Okay. Yes. Welcome, Dr. Matthew Philip. Are you there?
Yes, Roy, I am here.
Okay, we would expect your expert comments.
No. I am in another webinar also.
Okay, fine. That is Krishnadas. That must be over.
No. This is actually our own institution, departmental.
Okay, fine. Thank you. We'll call the next person. Thank you, Dr. Samir Kumar from Global. And Dr. Sadish, are you there?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Sadish.
So, can you identify this? It's quite simple.
Sir, biopsy forceps.
Yeah. Okay. So, can you tell something more about the biopsy forceps? What is the, quite simple, but sometimes it can be, where all you are using this, and how many times you can, or how many bites you can take.
Yes, sir. For biopsy forceps can be used in Barrett in esophageal condition like Barrett esophagus or early carcinoma. In Barrett esophagus, we will continue with the Seattle method procedure. Then this forceps also can be, then other gastric carcinoma or doubtful lesions, we can use the same biopsy forceps in colonic conditions also. Then it or
Okay, so it is basically used to take biopsy.
biopsies.
Okay. Any other
Yes.
purpose?
Sir, it's a polyp. You can diminutive polyp. You can
Okay, diminutive polyp,
polyp.
you can just
Then
remove it.
then
Biopsy.
and foreign body, smaller foreign
Small
bodies.
foreign bodies, okay, fine. Small foreign bodies you can take. Then
Then sorry, sir.
okay. Now suppose this is disposable or reusable.
It's actually disposable.
But we are reusing.
We are using it.
So how will you process it?
We are processing in ethylene.
The first and foremost is not just take it out and put it in that plastic bag. You have to remove the biofilm. That's the most important. So the cups will have to be thoroughly brushed, cleaned of the biofilm, and of course, then you can clean it up in ordinary disinfectant, and then finally send for ETO sterilization. Okay. Now, how do you know whether your biopsy forceps is really going to open inside when you put it inside? Can you do it? Do an external test?
Yes, sir. I will check it first. It's opening.
You ask your assistant to open it.
Open it.
And when you take it inside, it is not opening.
Yes.
So this happens after repeated reuse. Okay. So one simple technique is to make a circle it and make a 30 centimeter round circle and ask the assistant to start using it. And if the jaws are not opening, that means it is not going to work inside. Okay. Any other purpose for which it is used? In PEG, you can use it, no?
Yeah, we can catch hold of the guide wire. Then
okay.
For even in jejunal PEG and PEG jejunostomy also, we can use this forceps to.
Okay, over to Dr. Roy.
Yeah, one technical problem. Just a minute.
Okay, I will continue.
Yeah.
Okay. How do you reprocess your endoscope?
First, sir, first we'll wash the endoscope in running water. Then we'll clean the channels.
First is again removal of the biofilm using a soft cloth or a gauze or something like that. That's the most important thing. The most important thing in the cleaning of an endoscope is the removal of the biofilm, which actually will be of mucus and various blood and other things, no? Food materials, all those things will be sticking. And if that is stuck on the surface of the endoscope, then whatever other method you use subsequently, it will not really help you. So first is removal of the biofilm. That's very important. So you clean the outside of the endoscope. What is the next procedure?
Then we are cleaning the channels.
You're on endoscopy unit. You must be able to tell your assistants, or we have to be able to supervise whether your endoscopy assistant is doing things in the correct way or not.
Yes.
So we'll brush clean the channel. Good. Yes.
Yeah. Then we'll brush it first with the water. Then we'll brush it. Then we'll keep it in the disinfectant.
Okay.
For 20 minutes.
So simple disinfection. Which disinfectant you are using? First is cleaning biofilm, and most people use an ordinary disinfectant like a Savlon to clean the outside and maybe irrigate the channel as well. And after that, they immerse the endoscope completely in the high-level disinfectant. What is the most common disinfectant used in endoscopy practice?
Sidex.
Side. What is the
ethylene.
chemical name?
Sir,
Glutaraldehyde.
sorry,
Glutaraldehyde.
glutaraldehyde.
What are the side effects of glutaraldehyde?
Sir, mucosal irritation.
Yes.
Erythema.
So the assistant can have severe allergy to it.
Allergy.
Okay. So the vapors of that can produce a severe conjunctivitis. Then some people have rhinitis. But it spills out the skin, it can produce dermatitis, and allergic people can have a lot of problems. Then the patient, if your scope has not been thoroughly washed after immersing in glutaraldehyde, the patient can develop a glutaraldehyde-induced inflammation of the tissues, especially colitis.
Yes.
That can,
Yes, sir.
though rare.
Yes.
Okay. Now, what about is what all organisms are completely removed by high-level disinfection with the glutaraldehyde?
Sir, gram.
Or what all organisms are not removed? That will be easy.
So biofilm forming organisms or spore forming organisms.
Okay. Now, do you think that this is a satisfactory method of cleaning and reprocessing for a therapeutic procedure like ERCP, biliary, and pancreatic?
No, sir, we will keep it in a reprocessing machine also.
So, what exactly? What is the difference between manual and reprocessing technique? Basically,
sir, I'm not.
Okay, Dr. Roy, are you there?
Yeah, I'm there. So this
Okay,
is how
basically one is manual, the other one is the machine will do, and probably the most important thing is that the human tendency to take it before the ideal time. See, when there are a lot of patients waiting and you have a function to attend at 1 o'clock, you may have a tendency to ask your assistant, give me fast, like that. That should not happen. If you only one endoscope. If you are working in an atmosphere or in an institution where you have different endoscope coming for different patients, then that problem will not be there. It's a high volume center with a lot of endoscope. But if you are a center where there's only one endoscope and each has to be processed, and if you are busy, probably there will be human element which will actually curtail the duration of immersion. That should not happen. Okay.
Yes. Yes.
So once you are putting the machine and it is set automatically, then you cannot take it half. You can actually override and take it, but usually you will not be able to do that because the log will tell you that you have done something wrong. Okay. In advanced centers, the log has to be maintained. And as per NABH, I think you have to maintain the log of endoscopic cleaning properly. How much you put that, how much time you put each time, and the log will have to be kept. And also, how will you know whether the glutaraldehyde is effective? You are reusing it. No? For how many days you reuse?
One
After how many
time,
days you can reuse glutaraldehyde?
3 to 5
Is
days.
it one time? Well,
No.
if you do it one time, it is great. But most of us use it for 2 weeks as per the information provided by the company. But there is a caveat here. You cannot just blindly use it for 2 weeks. You have to do a testing. You have to use their strips by which you have to find out whether it is biologically active on every day. And if it is only active, we can use it for that day. Okay, so 2 weeks is not blind. You have to check it every day and then you have to use it. Machines will help you to make it more standardized, and of course there will be an automatic log if you maintain that system. Okay.
Okay, sir.
Dr. Roy, please.
Yeah, thank you. So
And someone has mentioned that you can also remove a stent with the help of a biopsy forceps. That is right. Okay. Stent
Yes.
removal also. How do you remove a stent with the biopsy forceps, Dr. Satish?
Sir, is
Metallic stents? No.
Yeah, it have a it has a when thread is there, sir. So you can, if you
Our
pull
tendency
that,
will be to go and bite to the upper end of the metallic stent and pull it up. Okay. Actually, that will damage the cup of the biopsy forceps. There is a small string-like thing on the top of which you can catch and pull it. Okay. How do you remove biliary stent, which is a plastic? and getting into the duodenum.
So that can be removed directly by holding and just pulling it out, sir. It's if it is a plastic
But
stent.
very often that will slip, especially if it has
So,
remained there for some time.
we snare. I will use snare.
Okay, fine. Okay, fine. Thank you. Thank you. Dr. Roy, please.
Yeah. Identify.
Can you make
Sir,
it bigger?
Yeah, sir, sphincterotomy.
Yeah. Okay.
Hmm.
Yeah. The uses.
It's used in ERCP procedure, sir. It can be used for cannulation as well as for cut. It's a sphincterotomy also. Then hello.
Okay.
So basically, sphincterotomy, no? So it has to be when you have to do a cannulation, and then only you can do a sphincterotomy. So
yes,
if you read
then,
that, it has something. Okay, what is the direct wear technology?
So this has got a triple lumen usually, so we can inject, you can
yes,
then inject and cut. Okay.
yes.
So you can bend also. So the sphincter, it can be bent according to your needs.
Yes.
So where all it is used?
Sorry, it's used for years cannulation and biliary and pancreatic duct. Then guide wire assisted procedures like SEM.
Okay, it is used for sphincterotomy, basically for bone disease, or you need to, whenever there is a need for a stenting.
Yes.
Biliary stenting, you may have to perform a sphincterotomy. So this is usually a wire guided procedure. It is not a blind procedure. It is a wire guided procedure. Okay.
Yes.
Right. Anything else, Dr. Varghese?
Do you have a separate sphincterotomy for pancreatic work and biliary work?
Yes, sir. There is a different sphincterotomies are available, sir.
How is it different?
Smaller, sir, I am not sure.
Yeah, I think we use the same thing, unless, of course, Dr. Roy, do you think we use separate things for biliary and pancreatic? Because the same thing is used, no, mostly.
Same thing is used. So that is not the only thing is, if you're doing pancreatic sphincterotomy, you pass the wire into the pancreatic duct and cut it. If you're doing biliary, you pass the wire into the bile duct and cut it. So how far you make a sphincterotomy in biliary? Is there any idea of how much you should cut and anything like that?
Yes, sir. Actually, we will see the direction of biliary tract. Then you can cut up to the fold. Actually.
Okay. So what is the important thing? Suppose the bile duct is dilated.
Yes, sir.
In one case, and the other case it is very narrow. Is there any? Will it make it any different, or you'll be more cautious in doing one procedure?
Yes, sir. More cautious if it is not dilated. If it is dilated, it's a bit more easier than non-dilated.
The perforation is less when there is when it is dilated. Okay. So what is sphincteroplasty?
Sphincteroplasty, we are dilating. It is the balloon. And
dilating where?
In the ampullar regions.
Okay, you are dilating the cut area.
Yes.
With what? How do you dilate it?
With biliary dilatation balloons.
Yeah, this was actually discussed in the last class. Anyway, okay. All right. Where is it? When will you decide for a sphincteroplasty?
Do you understand the question? When do you decide to do sphincteroplasty?
Sir, in patient with we are suspecting bleeding.
No. You must be careful. Okay, suppose after your sphincteroplasty, when you release the balloon, there is torrential bleeding. What will you do?
One is stenting. We can put stenting.
The first
we
and
can put
immediate thing you should do is re-inflate the balloon and keep it there for some more time. That's the simplest and easiest and fastest thing which you can do. Rather than taking it out and putting a stent and all will take a lot of time. The simplest and easiest will be that. Okay, back to the question. When do you decide to do a sphincteroplasty? That means we want to make that opening very big. I think I have given enough clue.
Suppose
Sir,
there's a stone and you do a sphincterotomy and you do a balloon sweeping or whatever it is, and the stone is coming out. No need for a sphincteroplasty. When do you decide on sphincteroplasty? When will you?
Okay,
no.
when the stone is big or when it is a very big stone, no? You may find it difficult to take it out through an ordinary sphincterotomy cut. So you have to dilate it. Okay, but this I think we discussed last time.
Yeah, I think.
Okay, we move to the next person, no? Okay, thank you, Dr.
Thank you,
Satish.
sir.
Now we'll go
Thank
to
you, sir.
Dr. Ravi Kiran. Dr. Ravi.
Yes, sir.
Ravi Kiran, are you there?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Good evening, sir.
Good evening. Identify.
Yes, sir.
This is a balloon.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Where did you?
CRE balloons, hurricane balloons, sir. Sorry.
Oh my God.
I will ask you one.
Oh, sorry, sir. Sorry, sir. This is balloon drawing for removal of the CBD stone, sir.
Yeah, we were somewhere near CBD, no? So
Yes, sir.
naturally
Balloon
it will
drawing.
be connected with that.
Yeah.
Dr. Roy, continue.
So this is a extractor balloon.
Extractor balloon.
So here again it's wire guided. Okay. So
Yes, sir.
go above the stone and just remove
Inflate and then balloon draws.
and inject. It's a triple lumen.
And balloon occlusion cholangiogram also.
Yes. You can do occlusion cholangiogram like what is shown here. And inject above, inject below, and do occlusion also. Okay. So suppose you fail to take out stone by this balloon. What is the next step you go for?
We can use a basket and go for a crushing of the stone if the stone is big in size. And if
Which
there is a
basket you
distance,
will use? Which basket? What is the name of the basket?
a trapezoid basket, sir.
So, is there any other basket by which you just catch the stone and try to pull it out? Simply pull it out rather than crushing.
Yes, sir.
First is sweeping, then using a basket. Then if it doesn't come, then you have to cut it.
A lithotripter you can use also. Lithotripter.
Okay.
Mechanical lithotripter.
Mechanical lithotripter.
Yes. And if it fails with mechanical lithotripter, what is the next?
Then we can use a cholangioscope and go for a laser lithotripsy.
Laser lithotripter.
Lithotripter, sir.
You don't have the cholangioscope. You have not purchased it. You have just started. Any other simple methods? I think last week we discussed the same.
I think we were just.
Okay, you can put it plastic stent, no?
Plastic stent and can reattempt afterwards, after 48 hours.
48 hours. Dr. Roy, is that correct?
48 hours? Did you say 48 hours? I didn't hear that. We discussed this in detail.
Yeah, 48 hours.
No, we said no, the more the stent is there, the chances of the stone getting smaller by friction because it moves up and down. So it won't come down in 48 hours, no? It will take a few weeks.
No, 1 to 2 weeks, sir.
Not 2 weeks, more than that. What is the longevity of this plastic stent?
Usually up to 3 months.
Okay. So usually 3 months. So you can keep the stent, as long as at least 2 to 2.5 months, you can keep it. And then, right, if there is no cholangitis or anything else, the stent block is not there, you can keep the stent like that. There's no problem. So the more you keep it, the size of this next time
Stone
the
is-
chance of getting the stone out is easier.
Okay, before we move out of this balloon, I will ask you one funny question. Which are the situations where balloons are used in gastroenterology? Apart from a celebration in your unit. You found one balloon we just told you, and the previous one we just mentioned about sphincteroplasty.
Yes, sir.
So imagine start from the esophagus.
For I mean, if in correct,
Some examiners are maybe crazy
esophagus-
like me and ask such funny questions. You should not be off guard. No, it's just very
Yes,
simple. Just to think, use your thinking process properly. Esophagus. What are
esophagus.
to use?
So CRE balloon can be used.
CRE balloon. Okay. Then
In pyloro.
Rigiflex.
Rigiflex dilator for
Achalasia cardia.
achalasia cardia. Yes, sir.
Okay. Then in pylorus. Okay, agreed.
Pylorus for
Pylorus.
gastroparesis. Then
Okay, pylorus. Then
and then CBD.
biliary we discussed. Sphincteroplasty and also
pancreatic
stone extraction.
Stone extraction.
Okay.
Even
Then-
for
Then
inflammatory, sir.
then
Inflammatory bowel disease, Crohn's disease strictures also balloon dilatation can be done, sir.
balloon dilatation of which part?
Small bowel, sir. Small bowel stricture. Terminal ileocolon.
Okay, but many people are not as enthusiastic or bold to do like that. Okay. In
Yes.
colon also we can do.
Yes.
Okay. In colon, any other balloon used for any other purpose?
In anorectal manometry balloon expulsion test can be used.
Okay. Is a balloon used for something else, therapeutic purpose other than this big
In
balloon?
rectal strictures also balloon can be
Okay. You
post radiation.
manometry. Any gastric balloon?
For gastric, I mean bariatric procedures, sir.
Yes. And last time we discussed Blackmore Sengstaken balloon, Linden
Inflatable
necklace
gastric
balloon,
balloon.
etc.
Intragastric balloon. Yes.
Okay, so there are so many balloons used in gastroenterology. Okay, different sites, different purpose. If you just remember like that, you won't miss anything. And
Yes, upper to lower.
okay, in few seconds you will narrate all those things. So even when you remember it in an orderly fashion. Okay, that's a small digression from the topic. Over to Dr. Roy.
Okay. So identify this accessory.
So this trapezoid basket, sir.
You have already mentioned about
Yes, sir. With useful for crushing stones in difficult stones, large stones.
Okay.
And,
So what are the advantages of this basket?
sir, I mean, in case of impacted basket, also we can dislodge the wires, sir. With by cutting the sheath, we can dislodge the wires and we can remove the baskets.
Not by cutting the sheath. Actually, before that, this has got two other advantages. One, you can pass the guide wire by the side. You can actually direct suppose you have a intraductal stone, or so you can pass the wire and over this you can see that wire which is going by the side. So you can direct
Yes, sir.
the direction of the basket can be to a certain extent we can manipulate. That is one thing.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, there's an injection port there.
Yes, sir.
And the other one is what you said. No, if you tighten too much, you can see something in the tip of the
Tip of this thing will get removed and the wires will open up, sir.
But this is not as strong as the other basket. No, if the stone is little harder, this just gets off. So sometimes it can be a waste also. This is one advantage of this. Smaller stones can do that. Okay.
Yes, sir.
That is it. So, right.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Devi Kiran. Now I will call Dr. Jagdishwar from KIMS. Jagdish, are you there?
Yes, sir. I'm here, sir.
Okay, fine. Identify.
It's non-covered self-expanding metallic stent, sir. Biliary stent.
Yeah, that is true. Okay. This is a metal biliary self-expanding stent. What is it made of?
made up with Nainta.
What? I didn't hear that.
Just
Naintal.
repeat. Nainita or something else. I think the alphabets are correct. Is it Nitinol or Nainital?
Nainitan.
Okay, maybe your way of pronunciation is different. Okay,
Actually,
continue, please.
okay. So this is actually sorry. So different companies make different photo. What are all the stents which are available for the biliary problem? Metal stents, different types.
Stent type, no idea.
Right. I know that it is covered, can be uncovered, can be partially covered. You have any idea?
Oh,
What is the Dr. Jagdish?
yes, sir.
Okay. The question is that what are the different types of biliary metallic stents used?
Partially covered, fully covered, and uncovered sensor, and one more will be biodegradable stents also.
Okay, metallic. We asked metallic, no?
Yeah.
Okay. So if you are asked what are the different types of stent, we can say metallic, plastic, biodegradable, like that. Here it is metallic stent, therefore fully covered, partially covered, uncovered. Okay. What are the indications for fully covered, uncovered, partially covered?
Sir, fully covered metallic stent only for the biliary strictures, sir, or biliary structures most commonly, or any leak in the biliary leak post lap cholecystectomy injury. Partial uncovered metallic self-expanding metallic stents or partially covered self-expanding metallic stents for the hilar cholangiocarcinoma, like non-curative gallbladder carcinoma with bile duct picture, sir.
Any complication when you use fully covered metallic stent?
Migration will be the most common complication.
Yes. And
Cystic duct obstruction causing cholecystitis.
how do you circumvent that? Okay, over to Dr. Roy.
Okay. So this is all about this, and I'm not going into the. So what is the advantage of a covered from a metal? I mean, non-covered stent. What is in a malignant lesion? Suppose you put a uncovered stent and covered stent. What is the advantage of the? I mean, of the two. One, you said that if it's uncovered, you prevent the cystic duct block.
Yes, sir.
So if it is covered, what is the advantage?
Sir, covered will be less chance of migration, and epithelialization will be more in uncovered stents, sir. In malignant.
Yeah,
Can you make it clear? Uncovered, there is less chance of migration. That we agree. So what is the advantage of covered? When do you use, why can't you use then uncovered and do it for the same purpose?
Sir, the uncovered covered stent.
Why do you want a cover for the stent? What is the principle behind putting a cover for the stent?
For malignancy, usually covered.
Yes, tumor ingrowth. Yes, tell that. Tumor ingrowth will, in an uncovered tumor ingrowth will block the stent fast. So we want to avoid that.
Okay.
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 Can you identify this stent? This is also a metal stent. What is the difference between this stent which I showed and this one?
Sir, this is a short length self-expanding metallic stent, sir.
I didn't hear. It's a heavy rain, so I can't hear anything. Dr. Vagisov, can you hear what you said?
He said short length self-expansible metallic stent.
Where is it used?
Jagdish, are you there?
Yes, sir, I'm here, sir.
Hmm.
Sorry, sir, I didn't get you.
No, this-
Indication. When do you use this?
where
Sir,
the-
if any patient presented with severe obstructive jaundice with the features of cholangitis, but
No,
patients
no.
can be
This
go for
is
resectable.
This is not a biliary stent. This is not the pattern of a biliary stent. This is not a biliary stent. Where else it is used? Where else you can use the stents?
Sir, one is lumen opposing metallic stents also can be useful.
This is not lumen opposing.
Does it look like a lumen opposing stent?
This look.
No,
Okay, I
sir,
think
it's not.
you can tell it, Doctor.
Okay, this is colonic stent. This is a colonic metal stent for lumen obstruction by tumor. So done as an, when will you do a colonic stent?
Sir, any rectosigmoid growth, circumferential growth causing obstruction,
Okay.
or any tumor growth causing fistula spread to the
Fistula it may not be useful because it's not covered stent. This is an uncovered stent.
uncovered.
Basically,
Okay.
to prevent obstruction. Suppose the surgeon says that you cannot do a colostomy because the patient is very sick. Okay, so immediately you have to relieve the obstruction. That is one condition wherein you can put in a colonic metal stent. Okay, usually it is where do you put this usually?
Sir, usually rectosigmoid then
Okay,
or sigmoid.
usually in the sigmoid and rectosigmoid and left colon basically. More of the we don't usually go above that because it is a little difficult. That is the reason. But we have put like that also. That is another. But usually it is in the left column. Okay. Right.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Jagdish. And we now move on to Dr. Karthik and Natarajan from Apollo Hospital.
Yes, sir.
Karthik, are you there?
Yes, sir. Good evening, sir.
Good evening. Next.
So I'm just asking you, what are the newer procedures for gastroesophageal reflex disease?
Sir, the newer procedures, sir, endoscopic endotherapy, basically, sir. We have the Gerdex technology, sir. Then we have anti-reflux mucosal ablation, that is ARMA. We have anti-reflux mucosectomy. There is the esophax procedure, and there is
on the greater curvature. Recession is not going to be cut. After the marking is done,
This video, what is just this is a video taken by Dr. Amit. So I just so this is a procedure what you have mentioned as AMS. What is AMS?
yes, sir. So anti-reflux mucosectomy, sir.
Mucosal resection. Okay. So how do you do that? You can watch the video. It's very nicely shown here.
Yes, sir. First, we endoscopically we will grade the OG junction based on the Hill's classification, and type A and B respond to this maneuver. I mean, this method more than type C and D. And first, an injection is done, followed by an similar to an EMR. We do it for 2/3 or 3/4 of the circumference of the OG junctions. And then so that much of the mucosa is removed, and then it is we can apply clips, and it will heal by scarring, and it will decrease the hiatus, sir. I'm sorry, the OG junction will the max OG junction will then become more narrow, and then it decreases reflux by that method, sir.
Right. So what are
area
the
on the greater
complications of
curvature.
this? I'm sorry. What are the complications of this procedure?
Sir, complications, sir, the procedure related, sir, selection of the right patient, sir. Type A and B of Hill's classification will respond. C and D, they don't respond that well. Second is bleeding, perforation, and some excessive, if we go beyond 2/3, 3/4 of the entire circumference, sir, it can lead to dysphagia as well, sir.
Yeah, you can develop a stricture.
Stricture, sir. Yes.
You develop a stricture, what will you do?
If we develop a stricture, then in these patients we can offer them. We can do a dilatation, sir.
You can do dilatation. So what is ARMA?
So ARMA is anti-reflux mucosal ablation. Here ablation is done using the APC probe, sir.
Not only APC probe.
RFA also.
The better procedure is done by the knife. You know, you can use any of the BSD knives which is available. So here the importance is it's done like the mucosectomy. You raise the G junction and then you do ablation of again in a butterfly fashion. You can see the two wings.
Oh, yes.
So here again, it is only done for Hill's grade 1 to 2 or at the most. The 3. Sometimes you can do the 3 also. And you can see after the follow-up, you can see that the G junction gets constricted. So this is a good procedure. It's quite simple also. This is again it's for the okay. Now this is hello.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, what is this procedure?
Sir, this is the Gerdex procedure, sir.
Yeah.
Here, in the endoscope, sir, along with the scope, we have an additional instrument which is fixed to the endoscope, which will take a plication of the mucosa from one end to the other. As we can see over here, sir.
Not the mucosa plication. It's not done by.
Sir, beyond the mucosa, sir. It can even take full thickness suture, sir. Yes, sir.
So this requires 2 scopes. One is the nasal scope, which you have to pass through so this is actually a view from the nasal scope. I mean, the slim scope. We are seeing that what the Gerdex, the applicator is doing. Okay, so that is Gerdex. So that's it.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Karthik. Now we'll go to Dr. Joe. Dr. Joe from Master.
Yes, sir.
Okay, start. Identify this.
Can you identify this?
So this is a type of basket for retrieval.
Yeah, this is called a twister. This is not a usually seen one, but this is a fully 3-dimensional rotatable polyp retrieval. This is not usually used, so I don't think we have to, we use usually the other one. So which are the other ones we use for polyp retrieval?
So we can do the Roth basket can be used, sir.
Yeah.
So normally we use the Roth basket, and even foreign body retrieval basket can also be used. It's a large.
Okay. This is quite a useful one, but it's not used routinely. Okay, so identify this quite easy.
It is a
Why you are hesitating?
Video capsule endoscopy.
What?
Okay.
Capsule
endoscopy. Video capsule endoscopy.
Okay. So can you just tell how it is used? What are the advantages, what are the disadvantages, and how it is used? Because it's quite simple.
So basically, it is used in cases of obscure GI bleed when the patient presents with either overt or obscure GI bleed after you have done an upper GI and a colonoscopy, and you've ruled out the most common sites of bleed. To assess the small bowel bleed, it is used as a technique to either localize the site, and you can also diagnose what could be the diagnosis. It could be ectasias, or it could be some ulcerated lesions. So basically, to diagnose, and when you can't do any therapeutic procedure, but the yield of diagnosis is good. Sir.
Okay.
Okay. What additional things you can observe? Additional diagnosis you can make.
Other than bleed, sir.
Yeah. You can find out tumors,
Yes, sir.
all those things. In fact, one of our patients with advanced cardiac disease could not undergo endoscopy when he had melena repeatedly. And
Okay,
we
sir.
decided to do capsule endoscopy. Upper GI endoscopy was normal. And when we did capsule endoscopy, we found that his duodenum was teeming with hookworms. Okay.
Okay,
It's
sir.
a simple disease, but we had to do capsule endoscopy to find out. So sometimes it happens like that. Okay.
So before you do capsule, do you be careful?
Definitely, sir. It's always ideal to do a CT angiography to make sure that the lumen is patent. Otherwise, if you have an access to a patency capsule, you are safe. But otherwise, definitely you need to assess the small bowel by doing a CT angiography and make sure there is no obstructive lesion, because retention of the capsule can cause the capsule may burst, it can cause perforation. So such complications can be avoided if you do a imaging prior to a capsule.
Okay.
So how do you decide whether the battery is alive or not?
The battery is alive, sir. Actually, after you prior to inserting the or asking the patient to swallow the capsule, you will be attaching the electrodes and receiver on the patient's body, and once you swallowed the capsule, the light should be the blue light should be blinking, sir.
Once it is out of the place where it is kept tight, I think the light will start coming, no?
Yes, sir. Once it starts transmitting, the blue light starts to blink, and once it stops, like if it's a red light or if it stopped blinking, that definitely you should inform the
What's
patient.
the average duration of life of a biopsy for a small bowel capsule endoscopy?
Sir, 8 to 10 hours. I'm not sure.
Yes.
8 to 10.
Is it only for small bowel, or can we use the capsule for any other purpose?
How many types of capsule you know?
Sir, I don't know. I'm sorry.
Can you use it for colon? Or colon capsule or video colonoscopy, video capsule colonoscopy, is it available or is my imagination? It is available. It's available, but much less used because the success rate is not as high as in the case of small bowel endoscopy. Can it be used for diagnosing disease of the upper GI tract?
So, it's quite difficult to assess the esophagus.
Okay, agreed.
Stomach
and duodenum.
But stomach also, sir, you might not get the image of the fundus.
Yeah, because we may not be able to assess all parts of the stomach properly. Because
but duodenum can be assessed, because once you use a duodenum, it's a tubular, so you can assess the duodenum.
So you can use it mainly for small bowel and colon. Okay. And is a capsule type of system used for any other purpose in gastroenterology?
So, sorry, sir, capsule?
Capsules, use of other capsules rather than the therapeutic capsules, use of capsules in gastroenterology. So wireless capsules.
Sir, actually, there are various upcoming techniques where you can access the capsule with a magnetic field, and you can.
That's coming only. Bravo capsule, have you heard of?
So sorry, sir.
Bravo esophageal motility system.
Oh.
Bravo capsule, and the entire GI tract and the GI transit wireless capsule motility system is there. So the wireless capsule motility system can be used for esophageal motility and for the entire gut motility. For example, in gastroparesis, we can use small bowel paresis. We can use it also to study the movement of the motility pattern of the colon also. Okay. Now
Okay.
this screen you are seeing too many videos.
Yes,
And you must remember that there will be approximately 8 hours of video. And
Yes.
to watch this 8 hours, have you done this? Have you ever sat in front of this workstation and tried to analyze the capsule endoscopy videos?
Not the entire videos, but I have watched analysis of capsule endoscope videos.
So, is there any automatic system or artificial intelligence system by which it helps you to identify the lesion?
Suppose there is a bleeding spot. Will it say that there is some, I mean, at least give a clue that it is bleeding from this site?
Yes.
Yes, if it is bleeding and if the lumen is excessively red, it will identify that spot and highlight it that so that we can move the cursor forward and backward and identify the lesion. Okay. Otherwise, those who have watched the capsule endoscopy will always say it is not like watching a dance sequence. You are actually watching a movie with no audio, no background music, nothing, and the same small bowel you see from beginning till end. Actually, it is not a very easy thing, and it is quite boring, and you have to have a lot of patience to evaluate. You can actually do it in multiple screens, multiple. You are actually seeing multiple frames, no? That way you can do and do it faster. If you sit with a single frame, you will have to sit for a couple of hours and it will be too difficult for a clinician to sit and watch it. So we actually divide it into multiple frames and then look into multiple frames simultaneously. And occasionally, of course, the software itself may help us. Okay.
Okay.
Okay, fine. Thank you.
Okay.
Do you want to move to the next person?
Yeah, I think he has already covered.
Okay, so thank you, Dr. Joe. And we will now go to Dr. Chetana.
Yes,
Are you
sir.
there?
Yes,
Okay.
sir.
Okay.
So this is a small bowel enteroscopy. It's a double balloon enteroscope, which is used to detect the small bowel pathology in the form of, it can be both diagnostic as well as therapeutic. It can be used in the diagnosis of as well as therapeutic lesions like small bowel tumors, small bowel polyps.
Okay. So what are the complications you can get with this?
Pancreatitis.
Then?
That's all.
Okay. So there are, this is an invasive procedure. This is, so how will you do this procedure? What are, I mean, have you seen a double balloon enteroscopy being done?
I have seen spiral enteroscopies, no?
Yes, even only spiral, not double balloon. So what is the difference between spiral enteroscopy and double balloon enteroscopy?
It has the over tube spiral enteroscope. Plication of the small bowel is better with the spiral enteroscope.
No, what the main difference between, you are talking about mechanical, no? The mechanical spiral or motorized spiral. So what is the main difference between a motorized spiral and the double balloon? What is the advantage of a motorized spiral enteroscopy when you compare with the small bowel, the double balloon enteroscopy?
I don't know.
How much time with the double balloon?
The time taken is lesser with the spiral when compared to that of a double balloon. So.
Yes, very much lesser. But what is the problem with the motorized spiral? I'll show you the thing. Not all patients you can do spiral enteroscopy. So some patients you may not be able to. Have you heard about single balloon enteroscope?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So which company makes the single balloon enteroscope?
Olympus, sir.
Yes. Which company makes double balloon enteroscope? At least know the names just for the sake of.
Pentax.
No, it's not. It's Fujinon.
No, Calamity is easy. What is the third company?
Pentax.
No, it's
No,
not.
Olympus and Pentax is over. Which is the other company making it?
Fujinon, sir.
Yes. Fujinon makes the double balloon. Okay. So this is the power spiral you've been talking about.
Yes.
So the advantage, as you said, the time taken is much less. But the problem is the spiral enteroscope cannot be used in certain patients. Can you mention some of these patients who is definitely cannot be used?
No, I don't know.
Okay. Patients who have undergone surgeries, previous history of surgery, it is not advisable to do power spiral. So but the other advantage with the power spiral is it's got a NBA also. So we can make high quality images and the
next level in enteroscopy.
Just a video which shows that the power spiral, how it goes. So this is an attachment which is fixed to the enteroscope, and it automatically drives when you apply the switch. It's got a forward and backward movement. So the main advantage is the time which is being much reduced when compared to the double balloon or even single balloon. Okay.
Okay.
Right. Dr. Varghese.
Yeah, that's it. Next thing.
So identify.
This is a lumen opposing metal stent. It's a hot axio stent. It can be used for drainage of pancreatic collections, especially the Waldorf necrosis. The other lumen opposing metal stents are Nagy and Spaxis.
Okay. So hot axio stent. So the other one, as you said, it is the Nagy and but the true lumen opposing stent is hot axios actually. The other one, which is hot Nagy and Spaxis, is just coming in. But the axios stent, what is the advantage of this lumen opposing stent?
Sir, if the necrotic material is more, better drainage of the collection will be there.
That is true, but the other advantage is how it is. I mean, it's quite simple to use. It's very easy to use.
Vivek, please mute.
I had a video, but it's not. Anyway, this is actually a one-step procedure. You don't have to, previously we used to do when there is a pseudocyst, you have to puncture it, then dilate it, and then put stents like that. But the axios has got it's a one-step procedure. You just puncture it, then release. There is no further things being done. So it is very easy to do. That's one advantage. So what is the biggest disadvantage with the stent?
Bleeding chance.
Not at all common, because it's a very safe procedure. But there are certain other complications. Okay, more than that, the biggest disadvantage is the price. It's very expensive. So that is a main reason. But the bleeding happens when we keep the stent for more than a certain period. So usually you are not supposed to keep these stents for more than 3 weeks or 4 weeks. That's the maximum time you are supposed to keep. So if you put a stent, you think that this patient has got a Waldorf pancreatic necrosis, which is infected. Okay, so you put the stent. So you want to make a necrosectomy. So when will you do that? The same sitting you do that?
You wait for the drainage of the collection, sir. If it is not draining, then you can go ahead with the necrosectomy.
Okay. Sorry, some problem. I'll have to contact my technician. Dr. Varghese, can you continue this?
Okay, you are not. What are the other methods of necrosectomy other than endoscopic?
So it can be either a percutaneous drainage or video-assisted retroperitoneal drainage or surgical drainage. So.
Okay. When do you suspect that there is an infection?
If there
in a
is
necrosis?
if there is persistent fever, or if there is an ultrasound or MRI scanning which showing necrotic material, solid material, especially if it is more than 30%, then we go for the drainage.
No, that is can be sterile necrosis also on ultrasound or CT or MRI. So is there any clue by which you can say that there is possibly infection if you just see some appearance on the imaging?
Non-enhancement of the contrast on CT scan.
That actually shows that it usually when it is necrotic, it will be there will not be enhancement. No, only vascular areas will show enhancement. So necrosis means it has already necrosis and there is some vascularity. If you find air bubbles, what actually means?
It indicates that there is anaerobic infection.
Okay, so air forming bacteria is already there and it's producing infection. Okay, what are the usual type of bacteria which infect the pancreatic necrosis, wall of pancreatic necrosis?
Klebsiella, Pseudomonas, Enterococcus.
Okay, both aerobic as well as aerobic. What antibiotic you use routinely?
Usually, you can use a third generation cephalosporin or ciprofluoroquinolones or imipenem. So.
Yeah, because in most of the hospitals, third generation cephalosporins are not useful because of the resistance. Because in the hospital there is resistance. Yes. And these patients have been multiply manipulated patients. So you may have to use imipenem or higher, not third generation cephalosporin. Okay.
All right.
You're back?
I'm back, but again I'm fighting.
Okay, is it to show the video?
No, I'm not. Okay. Anyway, video is not playing. Anyway, so I
okay, that section is over, no?
Yeah.
This is next. Okay, thank you, Dr. Chaitanya. And we'll move over to Dr. Santosh. Are you there? If Dr. Santosh is there, okay, fine.
Yes, sir.
Can you identify this accessory? It looks like a forceps, but what forceps?
We have already shown forceps, so no
crocodile toothed forceps, sir.
No.
It is either anything which is jetting out from the tip. It is not, no.
One more clue. This is used when there is bleeding. No. Okay, this is called a Quiac forceps.
Quiac forceps.
Yeah. This
where
is it used?
Sir, it's used for treatment of bleeding ulcer, peptic ulcers, or telangiectasias, angiectasias.
But this is very often used when you induce bleeding due to a procedure. So when there is a lot of dissection.
Yes, sir.
So when are these procedures which produce a lot of dissections and bleeding?
ERCP polypectomies and ESTMR.
Okay. Much more extensive dissection. Actually, you have seen it in that earlier video for reflux disease, no? They have been coagulating some area. Okay, now for POEM.
Sir.
Okay, whenever there is submucosal dissection and bleeding, this can be used as a very efficient tool.
Okay, sir. Okay.
Actually, if, when POEM was started only, this they have made, because this is one of the mainstay of the procedure. Because any bleeding,
without this, I think you can't imagine doing POEM.
That is right. Okay.
And of course, now that that device has come, and it is also useful to control other types of bleeding also. So that has become useful to control most of the other indication which you mentioned. Okay.
So what are these instruments?
Sir, this is a water jet.
Look carefully. Look carefully.
EST.
No.
For EST.
Yeah, this is one triangular tip knife J type, the accessory which is used for ESD and POEM. So the advantage is this has got an injection port also.
Yes, sir.
Okay. This is made by Olympus actually. So there's the previously there was only other one which was the Obey, which has got all the facilities, but this they have made it afterwards. Okay, this just to know, you have to know some. If they show this, then you have to mention that these are used for, ESD, all things you should know.
Yes.
That's all.
Yes.
This is a hook knife. This is a hook knife J again. It's got a water jet one. Auto injecting port.
Yes, sir.
So identify this accessory.
Not sure, sir.
Okay. This is the
And
19
yes.
knife. This is-
19 knife.
Yeah, this has got an insulated tip. Okay. So the advantage is you don't cause any perforation to the mucosa, which is opposing. So you can safely do when you're doing a ESD or some procedures like that. The advantage is a ceramic tip, which prevents
Ceramic.
yeah
Okay.
damage to the mucosa. Okay. So
Okay.
okay. So this is. Can you identify this one? This is what I was telling about the. Can you see that it is made by one company?
Yes.
Yeah. This is called
This one, Quatris, this one,
no. This is a hybrid knife.
hybrid knives.
Yeah. Where is
It has both injection and incision.
yeah? Where is it used mainly?
It's used for poem and poem procedure, and
That's
even
mainly
EST it can be used.
This is basically they've made it for poem because it's got the advantage of injection, cutting, coagulation, all in one this thing. Okay. Right.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Santosh. And we now move to Dr. Cyril. Are you there? Cyril is not there. So, Dr. Samir Kumar, are you there?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, Dr. Samir.
Okay. Identify.
Sir, because there is a detachable end is there, so mostly this patch to intragastric balloon for obesity.
Right. So this is an adjustable. What is the advantage of Spatz balloon?
Advantages, I'm not aware specifically.
Adjustable balloon. So you can adjust the volume of the balloon by adding. You start with smaller. The liquid which is you're using will be smaller. Then you can increase it. The patient is not tolerating, or if he's not responding, you can add more. If he's not tolerating, you can reduce the. So that's the advantage of Spatz balloon. Okay. So what are the complications with this balloon?
So one, it can rupture. So generally we put methylene blue so that we will know. And intraprocedural complication like aspiration, bleeding and perforation also can occur.
Yeah, it can cause all those problems, but main side effect which we are seeing, after putting this balloon is what? The patient will come the next day and come and say that please take out this.
Bloating, patient will complain of early satiety and bloating.
He will be vomiting, nausea. The problem is that is why we have to. That is the advantage of this balloon. It's an adjustable balloon. If the patient is not tolerating, before you do a procedure like this, you have to counsel the patient very well, because they may think that just putting a balloon it is very easy, but it is not like that. It is this requires in the initial 1 to 2 weeks, at least 1 week, you will be having difficulties, and so you have to counsel the patient very well. And then there's your dietitian will give a slip. Actually, what should they should take only the liquids initially, sips like that. And also these patients may require some Serenase, Ondansetron, etc. initially, when others they'll not tolerate this balloon. Okay, this is an adjustable balloon. Okay, then the bioenteric intragastric balloon. This has been the most used one, which is the other advantage with Spatz is you can keep it up to 1 year. That's the one other advantage. But these other balloons are only for 6 months. But this is FDA approved, whereas the Spatz is not FDA approved. Okay, what is the biggest disadvantage of this procedure? You reduce the weight, and then what happens?
It reaches a plateau, sir. After less than 2 to 3 kg per meter square reduction in BMI can be there, but after that it reaches a plateau, and probably patient will not benefit further with that. So we'll either eventually go for a surgery.
No, this is for a temporary.
Temporary.
Patient is very well motivated, and he can keep the balloon for 6 to 8 months or 1 year, and he reduces the weight, and then if he is motivated, he can continue the same lifestyle. Then he can maintain. The other indication is, suppose you want to do liver transplant, or you can even do a bariatric surgery itself when there's too obese, no. So you put this balloon, reduce the weight a bit, and then do for bariatric surgery. Other thing is the NASH. We can temporary, again what I said, the lifestyle modification. Some patients, if they can tolerate it for a certain period, reduce the weight, and then continue the lifestyle. You can. That's the advantage of this one. The problem is the moment you take out this balloon, and if the patient is not in a good lifestyle, they will regain the weight. That what you said is right. Dr. Varghese?
What are the types of surgery for morbid obesity?
Sir, we have Roux-en-Y gastric bypass. We have sleeve gastrectomy. Then biliopancreatic diversion with duodenal.
So basically, it is a reduction in the volume of the stomach.
Yes.
It can be done by various methods, okay, including endoscopic, newer endoscopic methods, and then biliopancreatic or diversion. You don't allow the food to reach the duodenum and upper jejunum, so divert it. Okay, various forms of surgeries are there, which has more complication.
Sir, Roux-en-Y gastric bypass and biliopancreatic diversion with duodenal switch has most complications.
Okay.
Because this is malabsorptive also, so patients will have a lot of nutrient deficiencies developing later.
Okay, so apart from weight loss, they may have multiple nutritional deficiency, which you will have to address too. Okay. Have you heard of duodenal mucosal ablation therapy?
Yes, sir, duodenal mucosal resurfacing. Where
what is it used for?
For metabolic syndrome, especially to control type 2 diabetes, where they ablate the endocrine cells of the duodenum, which by incretin effect will reduce blood glucose levels and help in diabetes control.
So after a few months, the mucosa will regain, and what will happen? Is it a permanent method or temporary method? Even though the mucosa regains to normalcy, the incretin producing cells are not repopulated to the same extent. So it is neither permanent sort of nor temporary. You may have much more prolonged action when compared to the resurfacing occurs. Okay, thank you. We will move to the next person. What is the next one? Dr. Kurivula, are you there? If Dr. Kurivula is not there, Dr. Sadish from Pushpagiri.
Is there?
Sir, Kurivula is there.
Kurivula is there. Okay, fine. Dr. Kurivula.
Okay.
Next one.
Dr. Kurivula, can you identify this? At least have you seen the picture, or have you seen in some workshops somebody is doing this?
It looks like a very complicated tip of an endoscope or a device rather. It doesn't look like an endoscope. It looks like a device with some multiple things attached to it.
Sir, bariatric surgery endoscoping suturing device.
Right. What is the name of it?
Name.
Okay. You can read there.
Actually, a part of it is covered by your screen.
Sir, oversight. Overstitch.
Okay. Part is covered.
The upper part of it is covered. Probably you are not in slideshow mode yet.
I think I'm in slideshow.
Okay, maybe it's okay. Overstitch.
Yeah, it's an Apollo overstitch. Okay. So where it is used, where all it is used?
Again, sir, it's used in bariatric bypass surgery, bariatric surgeries. They'll stitch in the greater curvature to reduce the size of the stomach, to reduce the absorption and intake.
Okay. Where else you can use it?
Ulcer suturing in ulcer bleeding for endoscopic suturing, we can use it, sir. Then after gist removal.
You mean perforation?
Perforation, yes, sir. Perforation also you can.
Okay.
So we can actually make perforation during procedure and easily close this. Earlier, perforation was one of the dreaded complication. Now people are not that much afraid. During procedure, even if they perforate, they can close it with confidence.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Okay. So that is this Apollo endosurgery. The problem with it is costly, so it is not very widely used. But it slowly can, once they start making it in India, it can be.
How much is the expense?
So I think it comes around 2.5 lakhs around for the one procedure. I mean, for this bariatric. I mean, one.
The instrument alone.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I think it is. They are now probably okay. Can you identify this instrument?
Sir, it's that for EUS guided for biopsy.
EUS.
You look at what is the name of that on the handle.
Sorry, sir. Now it's a liver biopsy.
Okay, this is one thing you cannot make mistake. Examiners will get angry.
Okay.
So what is the name of this? This is a liver biopsy gun.
Liver biopsy guns.
Yeah. Okay.
So can you name the previous types of needles which were used? Historical information?
Yeah.
Do you know?
Jamshedi, sir. That is Jamshedi.
Earlier one was Wilm Silverman. Then came Mengini, which was mainly Wilm Silverman is a cutting needle. Mengini was an aspiration needle, and then came True Cut. This is actually a fast True Cut. This is actually a True Cut only, but it is done in an automated fashion. Okay.
So can you? What are the contraindications of liver biopsy with this?
Sir, any bleeding disorder and with the chronic liver disease with platelet less than 50,000 and deep-seated lesions, then
one is related to liver functions. One that is prolonged coagulation time and low platelets. Okay. Next is
related to the general condition of the patient, sir. When patient is too sick.
Then we won't do most of the invasive procedures, no?
Sir. Then
there are something which are very common for all procedures. Patient did not give consent and patient is too sick. Okay, we want much more specific contraindications. If there is massive ascites, will you do?
Sir, after draining the ascites only, we have to do the liver biopsy.
Okay, then if there is a pleural effusion on the right side, or if there is a right-sided pleural pathology, you have to be very careful. Okay. If there is a hydatid cyst, you have to be careful.
Hydatid cyst.
Okay. If there is a hemangioma, which is likely to be in the passage route, you have to be careful.
Also, if there is massive biliary dilatation,
yes,
you have to be careful because
massive biliary dilatation is also a contraindication. What will happen?
Hemophilia, sir.
How will you diagnose hemophilia?
Ultrasound or CT scan. Ultrasound and CT.
What is the diagnostic feature of hemophilia on imaging?
Hyper enhancement can be seen.
Enhancement?
Because of the arterial in the bile, inside the bile duct, sir.
If the bleeding is torrential, you may find the site of bleeding. In the contrast may extravasate into the biliary tree. Okay. Otherwise, you may find even sometimes clot also in the bile duct, as seen as foreign, like clot occupying the biliary tree. On endoscopy, you can obviously find out the blood coming from the ambulatory orifice.
Suppose there is coagulopathy and ascites. What way, what way you can take a biopsy?
Transjugular biopsy, sir.
Transjugular biopsy. Any other way?
US guided biopsy, liver biopsy.
Any other way?
What are the other methods of obtaining liver tissue other than percutaneous?
Sir,
okay, percutaneous you have mentioned. Then you said also transjugular. Then you mentioned EUS. Is there any other method available for our colleagues to take biopsy from the liver?
Laparoscopic, sir. Laparoscopic.
Yeah, laparoscopic as well as laparotomy.
Laparotomy.
Yeah.
Okay. There is one more percutaneous method, that is a plug biopsy. Have you heard about a plug biopsy?
No, sir.
Yeah, plug biopsy is actually there's a sheath. Actually, I don't have the pointers. There's a sheath which is introduced, and through that you take the biopsy, the true cut biopsy, and then you seal the biopsy with gel foam slurry. You make a gel foam slurry. Have you heard about gel foam?
It's used to close fistulas as well as.
It's mainly used for angiographic techniques.
Angiography.
No? Okay. Now you have a patient with a huge liver and altered the liver biochemistry. And the liver is very huge. It is palpable till right iliac fossa. And you are planning to do liver biopsy. What are the things you should be careful?
Sir, first consent of the patient.
All those things are routine. Actually, when you have a very huge liver, you should think twice before doing biopsy because the diagnosis is amyloidosis. So if you don't have this plug biopsy,
okay, sir,
you will have to shut your hospital and run away. What happens? If you
bleeding,
do torrential bleeding, if you do biopsy for an amyloidosis patient, you will get a biopsy specimen which is with a record-breaking length for the biopsy specimen. Okay, and first day everything will be all right. From second day onwards, patient will deteriorate. Will have more hemoperitoneum and sometimes hemophilia. Everything will occur. That is, the bleeding tendency is high even if the coagulation parameters are normal, because the blood vessels cannot contract because it's all infiltrated with the amyloid tissue. So it's a relative contraindication to liver biopsy in a very huge liver and if you suspect amyloidosis. Okay, and of course if you have plug biopsy, that one can do. Okay, how would you diagnose amyloidosis? What is the special stain used?
Congorot stain, sir.
Okay, Congorot stain. Okay, thank you. Thank you. We will go to the next. Thank you, Dr. Kurula. We will go to Ravi Kiran. Ravi, are you there? Ravi, if not there, we will go to Karthik.
Sir, yes, sir.
Can you identify this accessories which is being shown here?
Sir, is it transjugular?
You're right.
Yes.
So
where is the tip of the apparatus in the last picture?
Yes, sir. For transjugular, sir, for tips, sir. Transjugular liver biopsy. Sorry, transjugular liver biopsy, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Right. The transjugular liver biopsy.
Liver biopsy.
Okay. So nowadays, not much of transjugular is being done because of the other methods which are there. But transjugular is an excellent method of getting, doing liver biopsy when there is contraindications. The problem.
When do you want to do transjugular liver biopsy?
Sir, we do a transjugular liver biopsy in patients with ascites in patients in whom if there is some superficial skin infection that precludes a liver biopsy, and
So
in
the
patients
usual
in whom we want to
contraindications
measure
of liver
HVPG.
biopsy, no, like massive ascites. Okay,
Yes, sir.
the superficial, that means the superficial lesions are
Skin
there.
soft tissue infection, sir.
Okay, all those things are there.
And if we want to measure the HVPG at the same time, we can do this transjugular liver biopsy, sir.
I think one of the situation where you do that when there is profound coagulation failure, still you want to do liver biopsy. What is the condition?
DIC, sir.
Acute liver failure. Sometimes you
sorry.
are able to make a diagnosis. Acute fulminant liver disease. You may have to do sometimes. And in which case you can do. So why you are not bothered about bleeding in transjugular liver biopsy? In patient with profound coagulation failure also, you can do it. But why you are not bothered about the bleeding which occurred? There has to be bleeding at the site of puncture. But why you are not bothered?
Sir,
in other words, where do you take the biopsy? What is the route by which you go?
So through the jugular vein, we go, we access it through the hepatic vein only, sir.
Okay, agreed. You go to the hepatic vein and then take biopsy. My question is that.
So there will, yes, sir, there will not be any extravasation of blood outside. It will be within the vascular.
Yes, that is it. Bleeding,
the lumen.
Bleeding will be into the vascular system only. So obviously there won't be any blood volume loss or blood volume contraction will not occur. Okay, what are the complications of transjugular biopsy?
Sir, complications. Sir, if there is, there can be some hemobilia, sir.
Okay.
Any perforation apart from that.
But you can actually produce capsule perforation if you are in the periphery.
Yes,
okay. Then.
In addition to that.
Okay. Sometimes cardiac problems can occur. Arrhythmias.
Yes, sir.
Other things. Okay.
Yes, sir. Arrhythmias can occur. Yes.
Okay. Is the tissue bigger or lesser compared to conventional biopsy?
Sir, compared to conventional biopsy, sir, tissue will be smaller in size, sir.
But reasonably adequate to make a histological diagnosis.
Yes, sir. Yes.
Okay. I think next week we have got GA pathology and there will be some discussion on this next week. Okay. Over to Dr. Roy.
Can be local hematoma also. So you have to apply pressure after taking out the needle from the site. Okay. Right.
Next person. Dr. Jagdish.
Yes, sir.
Okay. What is this?
This is not used by us, but this is used by.
Used for our patients.
For our patients, by our colleagues.
Our patient, but we'll send to our colleagues. Okay. Are you able to identify Dr. Jagdish?
No, sir. No, sir.
Okay.
Okay. Dr. Roy, tell me.
Percutaneous radio frequency ablator. Okay, it's a probe which is used for the. Where do you use this?
Sir, RFT probe usually for hepatocellular carcinoma in early stage, sir. Stage A, child A, and with normal coagulation factor with mild portal hypertension.
Okay, so it is an ablative procedure. What else are the treatments of smaller HCCs? What are the other?
There is a microwave ablation, radiofrequency ablation, resection, and transplantation. These are curative procedures.
Anything which was practiced in India, cheaper methods. Prior to advent of all these things, something else was injected. Alcohol. Yeah, percutaneous ethanol injection.
So
okay,
what is the problem with that percutaneous ethanol injection? Okay. Then after ethanol, you also used acetic acid. Okay. So problem was the pain and the entire. When compared to ethanol, acetic acid was superior in the form. It completely ablates the tumor, but ethanol won't completely ablate the tumor. But the problem is again the gel form which we have shown earlier. No, the gel form is used to seal the tract when you take out the needle.
The-
Patient will get severe pain when the acid leaks out. Okay.
Okay.
So I think we'll go a little faster. Who's
Yeah, okay, faster. We're already 9:30.
yeah, who's next?
Okay, Chetana, are you there?
Yes, sir. This is hemospray. It can be used in case of diffuse bleeding lesions, such as in case of malignant bleed.
This is for patients who had malignancy. What could be?
MIT. Who is that? Please mute. Sojan, can you mute? MIT. Rohit, can you just look at that list of participants and mute MIT?
MIT.
Sojan is the host, he can do it.
MIT. I can't do that.
Okay, Sojan, can you do it? Mute MIT. The host has to do it. Okay, done. Okay, Chetana, continue.
So it's a hemospray powder, which is made up of fibrin. It is used for diffuse bleeding lesions, such as malignant bleed.
Okay. So there are a lot of indications for this hemospray. If you take the list, there's umpteen number of indications.
For in view of lack of time, can you just narrate it fast, Dr. Roy?
1 second. I can't even.
Go right.
Going back.
You're going back.
I'm going backwards.
It's okay. You just okay.
Okay. So almost all the lesions, they say that it is useful, but the problem is this hemospray is not available in India. The original hemospray, which is made by Wilson Cook, is not available in India. This is whatever we are using is made by the local companies, which is not that effective as it is mentioned. Okay.
Okay.
So who's next? You can continue that.
Joe.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Can you identify this stent?
So it's a elastin, sir.
Yes. Where is it used?
It can be used for refractory variceal bleed, post avial ulcer bleed, and after you have done a variceal banding, if the patient recurs to have rebleed, definitely this can be used as salvage therapy.
Right. Okay. So how do you use it? I mean, how do you deploy this stent? Do you have any idea?
So basically, the advantages you need not have an endoscope for this. Sir, I really don't know the steps of deployment, sir.
Okay,
Sorry.
you don't care this. You see that there's a balloon at the tip. You go it in the stomach and then inflate the balloon, and then you release the stent. So it will be in the. You need to know. You need to have an X-ray. I mean, radiological
Fluoroscopy should be.
Fluoroscopy to make sure that it is in the. So it's very easy to use and it's very, very useful. There is a refractory bleeding, especially in case of post-EVL or any of these things where you can't. Okay. Can you identify?
Over the scope Ovasco clip, sir.
Okay. Where is it used?
It's basically used for large, there's more than 2 centimeter ulcers, bleeding ulcers, perforations to close small fistulas.
Yeah. Okay. These are all, anastomotic leads, etc. It can be a very useful clip. So this is one of our patients who had a bleeding from the second part of duodenum, which is very close to the ampulla. He had dura foci lesion there, and he could all the other clips it failed, but with OTC it completely stopped. And it was so it's a very useful technique by which. How do you deploy this?
So it's basically you have to. There's a cap and you can suck the. It's almost like similar to, not similar, but the steps are almost similar to like banding.
Yes.
You suck the area and then you deploy the clips.
Yeah, right. You deploy the clip. So this is also a similar accessory where it is used. This is a similar accessory, but it is not used for bleeding, but it's used for some other purpose. No? So this is a full thickness section device. It's again made by OS endoscopy. So you see a polyp like this, and you can't, you're not sure that whether this will cause perforation, or you can actually suck in the polyp, deploy the clip, and then resect it over it. So this is a full thickness resection, again made by the Ovesco company. Okay.
Okay, sir.
This is how it is shown. You can suck the polyp into the gap, or you can with the using that forceps. It has got a forceps which comes along with that, and suck in, then apply the clip, and then cut it. Right. Who's next?
Dr. Santosh.
Sir. Yes, sir.
Okay.
Okay. So, what is this instrument?
The cholangioskop and pancreatoscope.
Which cholangioskop is a single? I mean, what is the name of the cholangioskop?
Baby scope, sir.
Which one?
Baby scope.
Mother baby.
Mother baby scope.
This mother baby scope, which is there's a single operator scope. What is told?
Single operator. Yes, sir.
Single operator. What is the name of the single operator scope? Which is available right now in the market?
Don't know.
This spyglass.
Spyglass.
Okay. So can you identify this accessory? This is actually the spyglass.
Probably with the biopsy forceps,
What
spyglass.
is the name of the biopsy forceps which is used in the spyglass?
Spybite. Spybite.
Yeah, this is a spybite forceps. Okay. So where is it used?
For to identify, to take the biopsy from a stricture or lesion, cholangiocarcinoma or lesion, and IgG for disease.
So whenever there is an indeterminate stricture,
yes,
you can take biopsies. So earlier we used to take brush biopsy or blind biopsies, but now
Yes, sir.
with the advent of the spyglass, we can actually take biopsy by visualizing the lesion. What is this procedure which is shown? It's already written there.
Laser lithotripsy.
Yes, this is a laser lithotripsy again, used through the spyglass laser lithotripsy. When there's a large stone, we can powder the stone completely and clear the bile duct. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Anyone else is there?
No, Samir Kumar.
Yes, sir.
Okay, this is again just a spy. You can see what is this is a spyglass which is being used, and biopsy is taken. You can see the spybite biopsy is taken. This is a tumor which is shown in the bile duct, and we have given radio frequency ablation. This is through the. Unfortunately, what happened is that the tip of the radio frequency ablator got lodged there, dislodged. Again, with spybite biopsy forces, we are taking it out. So that's what the other use of spybite biopsy forces. We can actually take out the foreign body, which is okay. Can you identify this accessory?
Sir, this is EUS FRN needle. Probably expect needle from Boston Scientific.
EUS fine needle aspiration needle. Okay, expect. So what is this?
This is Acquire FNB needle. Tip is Francine.
Okay, this is a biopsy.
FNB.
Yeah, FNB needle. Okay. That's right. Which one is good?
So now studies are showing FNB is better than FNA.
That's right. Okay. So again, can you identify this accessory? I've already described about this right now.
RFA probes.
Yeah, this is a biliary RFA probe. Okay. So how do you use, what is the advantage of biliary RFA? Where is it used?
Sir, mainly for advanced hilar intraductal cholangiocarcinomas, and RFA also we have used for Barrett's esophagus. Whether this Barrett's esophagus eradication.
So this probe which is used. That
This
is
probe is-
what is the name of that probe?
Habib's.
Habib is the biliary RFA and pancreatic RFA, but you have told that it is used in Barrett's. Do you know the name of that?
No, sir. Not this.
No. Check it. It's. I think it's called Halo, right? Dr. Verghese?
Yeah, I think
It's
we are 9:45. We'll do it fast.
Yeah. This is again RFA, the animation which is showing that how it is being done. You pass the wire, just like doing an ERCP, and then pass the ablator and then ablate. This is basically if you are putting in a metal stent, you can ablate the lesion and put the metal stent, or if there is a tumor ingrowth into the metal stent, you can do it. Okay. So similarly, simultaneously also, you can do a PTBD and pass the wire from percutaneously into the bile duct, and then use the ablator to ablate the lesion. Okay. So this is a similar RFA probe, but this is, do you know where it is used?
For pancreatic lesions, we can puncture and we can do RFA.
Pancreatic radiofrequency ablator, which is used endoscopically, by endoscopic ultrasound. Okay, you pass the ablator through the endoscope, the needle of the US FNA probe, and then this is one of our patients who had this mainly done for inoperable or old age. Due to some reason, the patient cannot be surgery cannot be. This patient came with hypoglycemia and altered behavior. So on CT scan, we saw this lesion, the hyperechogenic lesion. Can you see this? Yeah. So the biopsy came as a neuroendocrine tumor, and what we're doing, since she was not agreeable for surgery or any other procedure, what we're doing is we're passing an echo endoscope, the biopsy forceps into the lesion, and through that you can see that this is a FNA needle, 19 gauge FNA needle which we are passing, and through that needle we pass this probe and then ablate the lesion. You can see the ablation which is happening. You can completely ablate the lesion. Even the tract also you can ablate, or the needle tract, so that the seedling won't be there. You can ablate the tract also, and then so this post ablation, you can see this completely hypoechoic. Earlier it was hyperechogenic. So this is an excellent procedure, but only done when there is a contraindication or not suitable for surgery. Thank you.
So that was a really exhaustive session. One thing which probably we did not cover was the anorectal manometry and balloon expulsion, which I think you can just read up about colonic transit study using markers, and about anorectal manometry and biofeedback mechanisms and the machine used for that also. Okay. And of course, it has been a very exhaustive session, and I hope the students are immensely benefited. Thank you, Dr. Roy. Dr. Sojan, are you there for the formalities?
Some 22 questions.